Hi guys, I'm Sasha. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to show you how to make scented hangers that are not the padded kind. I like these because they're really thin and streamlined. Okay, and they smell great. These are really cute gifts for pretty much any occasion, but you know, if you're into embroidery and it's someone's wedding, you could embroider the initials of the bride and groom on the hangers. I just think they're really cute and they're easy to do. So you can pretty much use any hanger that you like. You can use a wire hanger, a plastic hanger. I like to use these because the fabric sticks to the felt and it doesn't slip around a whole lot, but I do like the wire top as opposed to the plastic top. I will show you step by step how to make a really cute gift out of some hangers. You're going to need some scent crystals that you can get at the grocery store, and some fabric, and then maybe some ribbon or some already tied bows that you can get at the craft shop. Alrighty, so let's have a look. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a little pattern by tracing out our hanger that we're using. So take whatever hanger that you plan to cover and set it on whatever you're going to make your pattern out of. You can use cardboard, you can use paper, fabric. I really like to use these cheap vinyl tablecloths because they have the flannel back and it sticks to the fabric, so when I'm cutting out my fabric it kind of stays put, so this works really well. So I am going to start by tracing out my hanger. I'm not going to worry about my seam allowance right now, okay? I'm just going to follow right along the hanger, like so. And then when I get to this top part where the wire is sticking out, I'm going to trace that upwards with a little bit of extra. Okay, I'll show you that in just a second. Okay. So here's what I did. There's my pattern for my hanger, and you see how I have this little notch up here. That's going to be the pocket where we make the hole for the wire part of the hanger to stick through. All right. Now before we get started cutting out our pattern, let's talk about seam allowance. I like to use about 1/2 inch, which is more than I usually use for sewing, but you'll see why when we get to the sewing stage of the project. So I would say I would put my cutting right about here. This is the actual hanger. This is including my seam allowance. The only thing I don't need a seam allowance for is this little area that the wire is going to stick through. But I do want it to come up just about like this. And I'm going to cut it here. Okay? So I'm going to cut here, here, and here. Okay? So I'm just going to kind of follow that around. Doesn't have to be perfect, just same basic shape. Okay, and now I'm going to cut out my pattern. So once you've laid out your fabric that you want to use, double it up obviously so you can cut two. You can probably cut several of these at one time. Something to keep in mind is if you have a fabric that you can see through, you're going to be able to see the scent pocket, so you're going to want to double up that fabric and do 2 on each side of the hanger. But I have this kind of burlap looking stuff, so I'm just going to use 1 on each side. So I've doubled up my fabric and now I'm going to cut. Okay, so now we have our cover. This is what it looks like. Okay, and before we start sewing that, I am going to show you how to attach the scent packet. I just took some scrap fabric and made a little pocket, filled it with some scent crystals, and sewed it up. Okay, and before I did that, I kind of took a look at my hanger because I want this to go right in the middle, just like that, and I'm going to sew it to the hanger. And remember not to overfill it because it's pretty narrow hanger, so you don't want a lot in there, and it doesn't take much. They're really potent. So I'm going to take my needle and thread, using a thick thread so you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just going to go at the corner to get it started. And I'm just going to go right around the hanger and then up through the packet. Pull it tight. And this is not going to be tugged on or anything because the cover is going to cover it up. So it's merely just to get it in place, but we don't have to go overboard with securing it. Just a couple times around. Okay. Once it's round, then I'm going to tie my knot. So now we're ready to sew our cover. So with my first piece of fabric, I'm going to take this little flap and I'm just going to fold it in pretty much to where it's even with the other part. I'll just stick a pin in there, keep it from moving around, and I'm just going to put in a real quick stitch right there. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing with the other piece. Fold it in. Now, you can't tell with this fabric, but if you have fabric with a print or a right side and a wrong side, you're going to want to pin it into the wrong side of the fabric. Okay, so this should be the right side of the fabric, or the good side. This is the wrong side of the fabric. Sew it in toward that. Quick stitch. Okay. Now I'm going to remove these pins, and I'm going to pin my fabric right sides together. Okay. So this will be the right side of my fabric, the other right side, and they will be facing each other. I'm just going to pin that so it doesn't shift on me while I'm sewing it. And when I start sewing, I'm going to start here and I'm going to go down this way. I'm not going to start here and go toward the middle. The reason being that some fabric has a stretch to it, even a really slight one, and if you do it this way it could end up wonky at the end. So I'm going to start at the center and I'm going to go out, and then I'm going to turn over my fabric. I'm going to start at the center and I'm going to go out. We're going to save this for later. So right now we're just doing the tops. Okay, and you're going to want to leave an opening, not very large, just large enough for that metal top of the hanger to get through. So just off center there. I'm going to go right down to the end here. Just right there. Okay. And now I'm going to do the other side, remembering to leave an opening for the top of my hanger. I'm going to remove my pins and trim my extra thread. But I am not going to trim my seam allowances because we're going to want this extra here. So I'm going to leave that. Just going to trim my threads so they don't get in the way. So now let's turn this right side out. I'm going to insert my hanger, find that little pocket that I made. Can't find it. There we go. Okay, now before I pull this all the way over, the reason we wanted to leave these seam allowances here is because it's going to help us. We want to place the seam right over the hanger. So right here I'm going to split my seam allowance. You can press it open if you like. I'm not going to take the time right now. So do you see how I'm placing that seam allowance right on the hanger? Okay, and then I'm going to flip it over, pull it snug, and I'm going to actually stick a pin there to keep it in place. Okay, and then I'm going to go do this side, and I'm going to work my way down. Just placing that seam right on the hanger, and then see, that's where I want my seam, right there along the hanger, and then I'm going to pin it so it stays put. And I'm just going to continue to do that all the way down. So I've got it all pinned, and you can see that the seam exactly follows the hanger, which is what I want. And now I like to do this part by hand. You could probably do it with a machine, but I prefer to do it by hand. So I'm going to take this extra here. All right, I've got quite a bit extra, which makes it a little easier. I'm just going to fold it inside itself like that. Part of the reason I like to do it by hand is because then as I sew, I can pull this tight. See, it looks much better if it's tight as opposed to, you know, gappy. So, just gonna start here. Now these hangers I've decided to do shabby chic, so I actually want the thread to show. But you can do this any way you like. So I've finished my stitching, and now I'm going to attach my bows. Or you could use buttons, that would be cute. And you can sew these on. I am going to use a glue gun. I'm just going to attach that right there. And that, my friends, is how we can make even hangers a little more interesting. And they smell a lot better too. So if you found this video helpful or inspirational, please hit like and share. And until next time, thanks for watching.